So if you want to be a commercial photographer, how do you break into the industry? In this video, Al and I talk about the various ways we would suggest that you break into commercial photography. Here you go.
Hey there. All right. Today, we are going to talk about how to break into commercial photography. And we have a list of things. You ready to go over it?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that since you and I have been in this game for a while, maybe we're a little out of date on this. But I don't know. I think a lot of the principles still apply, but things were a lot different before.
They were a lot different. But I think, we brought it up yesterday on the upside. The upside of photography conversation. I think assisting is a really, really good place to start. And there's a few reasons for that, and there is a point in here where we talk about working for free. And I think that's a good place to, like, even if you work for free to get started, generally you'll get paid to assist. And I think it's pretty decent. And, but the assisting thing to me, as I experienced it, so I have stuff to say about that. I originally thought that assisting was going to help me be around the cool equipment and learn equipment things, and it did. But I learned so much more. I learned about the business. Like I was lacking the business knowledge of it.
And not the boring business part. You're just talking like client relations and things like that kind of business stuff.
Yeah, even, how to order food and get that sort of thing. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's so many nuances to the commercial side that if you can be an assistant and get in the door with a few photographers you admire, and the internet's great. Just look them up, see what you like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first step. I mean, it's like we're talking about how to become a photographer. I guess we need to explain how to become an assistant. I mean, what you want to do is you just want to, if you live in Pittsburgh, you type in Pittsburgh commercial photographer, and you don't stop on the first page because some really good photographers have really terrible SEO. Just, even if you have any friends in the industry that are graphic designers or art directors, ask them, hey, who are the best photographers in town? Right. And it's not only the best photographers, it's the ones that sort of specialize in what you like to do. If you want to get into food photography, you don't want to assist for a journalist. Or, right. That's the way it worked. And, normally you will be paid. I mean, I hire freelance assistants all the time, and so do you.
Yep.
And, we don't mind paying people, but sometimes we just don't have the budget to pay people. I want to tell a story about Kayla. Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. So I've had some experiences in the past where I've had interns come to me and they're from Ohio U or whatever. And it's been really bad experiences. Like they, to fulfill their obligation at school, they have to like go out and assist for a while, for a quarter. And usually, I don't like employees, for one thing. I mean, it's like one thing I never wanted to be around, but I've had some bad experiences. So I kind of cooled off any kind of free help for a while.
Yeah.
And then I get this call from this woman, and she had this whiny voice. I mean, it was like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to help. But she goes, I'm going to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I really don't feel like I'm learning enough. Can I just come hang out? I don't want to get paid. I just want to be there. I'll help doing anything. I just want to be around it. And, she came in and we hit it off, and I was paying her like almost immediately. And she assisted me for a couple of years, and then she moved on to New York, and she's a food photographer there.
Yeah.
So that was a good career path. She was willing to give it away. She wanted to follow her dream.
Right.
And it was imposing guilt on me. It's like I'd have to pay her. Here, she was worth it. I wasn't paying her out of,
right.
guilt or anything. I mean,
right.
She was worth it. She
right.
was good. And she didn't have to fight the competition because she was willing to give it to me for free.
Right.
So, I mean, that was a good strategy.
She was tenacious about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really big. And, through that, you sense their passion for what.
And that's so important.
It is important because they're they're not just there for the dollar. The dollar helps them, you know, because we all have things that we need dollars for. But like, she had a passion for it, and you know, and you get to know their personality. That's a big thing, that your personalities match.
Right.
It's really big.
Because you end up going through some stressful situations, and if you don't get along,
Right.
I don't care. I mean, I don't want you around. You know,
Sure.
because like you're there to make my life easier, and if you're a conflict for me,
Right.
that's not a good thing.
Right. And the other thing is
Excuse me.
how they are with your clients.
Right.
You know,
right.
like if they, you know, I think to be a good assistant, you know, I don't want to sound weird saying this, but you know when to talk and when not to talk.
That's actually very important. You know, what's another thing that's really important is if you try to crush the client with a view camera, that's usually a bad thing.
That happened my first week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God you were kind and gracious to me. But that was a really, that was, we all learn in life and have learning experiences. And I learned a valuable lesson to that day that the what is that called? The big tripod. I just lost the name. Monopod. Yeah. They're very heavy and they fall over. They can.
You get them off balance.
Off axis.
And you have an 8x10 view camera on the end of it. It gets really heavy.
Toyo view to the ground.
Yeah. And it's, you know, if you're a photographer and you hire an assistant, you almost, you know, you don't want them to break shit, but you know something's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sooner or later.
Yeah. I mean, if they're, you listen, you know, I remember in the early days trying really hard. And
you tried to break my stuff.
No, I tried. You know, you're moving so fast.
Oh yeah,
and I mean,
everything's so fragile too.
Right. In that particular day, it was with Shuey and Zig, and we were on set, and there was frustration building on set. And I remember you saying, "Just get this camera out of the way," and it was already coming my way, and I kept the motion going, and I didn't pay attention to, you know, and it wasn't because I wasn't being conscientious. I was green and there was heat on the set.
Right.
And I didn't have my wherewithal about me. And that's what can happen. I mean, that could have been a bad thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was fine. I wouldn't have brought it up if it was a bad memory.
Right.
It was funny, you know, in retrospect.
It was. And there was a time where I got shocked really bad.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. You remember? I had 2,000 watts go through my finger.
Boom.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, you know, assisting is a very good way to break in, because it isn't easy to break in to commercial photography, because you're trying to break into something that you don't. A lot of people just don't know where agencies are. It's not like they have big signs up all over the place. A lot of times they're just in buildings with no signs, you know, and so like, you know, and through assisting, you get to know art directors.
Right.
And I think commercial photographers, I think we know when somebody's ambitious enough, and you say it's just a matter of time till they go.
You want them. I mean, like, you don't want them to go, but you assume that they're going to go.
Right. And some don't.
Right.
Some don't. But like some do. And when they do, I mean, I've seen it happen. I'm happy for them. You know, I mean, it's a big step. It's a scary step too. Like to say I'm not going to assist anymore. I remember what that was like too. But yeah, I think assisting is
I think assisting is definitely the best thing you can do. But what's going to happen? I got to warn you right now. What's going to happen is you're going to find this photographer, 2 or 3 or 4 that you want to work with, and you're going to go and you're going to say, "Hey, I'd like to assist for you." And the thing is, they already have an assistant or 2 or 3. Because I mean, I have like the guy I call first string. He's not available, I call second string, then go to third string.
Right.
But if you sit there and say, "Okay, I just want to hang. You know, I want to be your second assistant, and I will work for free."
Yep.
I mean, if you can afford to do that, then all of a sudden you don't have competition.
Right.
You can walk right in the door.
Right.
They can get to know you or not like you or whatever, but you can get that over with.
Sure.
Whereas you may not even get the opportunity unless you do that.
That's right. And I think, again, that's a good way. I mean, like even taking pictures, there were some times early on I was doing things for free just to shoot.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just not talking assisting. I'm even
Right.
talking about like, say, if you want to be a food photographer,
Yes.
you want to specialize in food photography, and you go into this Mexican restaurant every day because you love this place, and you realize they have some crappy menu photos.
Right.
You can say, "Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll come in, and I'll shoot your food for your menu, and I'll charge you half price, and I'll even give you that half price where you can pay me in your food."
Right. Yeah. Give
You know,
gift cards.
do some barter
Yeah.
thing.
Right. Right.
And like that's the way you build your portfolio,
Right.
and that's the way you get in the door.
Yep.
And like there'll be photographers that totally disagree with what I just said.
Right.
Some people will say you never give it away. How are they ever going to value what you do?
Right.
It's like, well, I mean, I have a portfolio piece,
Right.
and I have like $600 worth of food. I mean,
Sure.
so I mean, there's some upsides and downsides.
Yeah. And again, that's your journey.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and you have to make those decisions.
Right. And how you get there. And I don't think it's wrong to do it another way. I just know certain things that have worked for me and certain things have worked for you.
Right.
And, you navigate through them. And if it doesn't work, you try something else, But if that passion thing, before money, when you do work for free, you are putting out there that this is a passion of mine and I just want to be around it.
And if they call you next time and they say, "Well, you're doing it for free, right?" and you say no, I mean, they can always try to find somebody else for free.
Right.
But
Or
they already know you though.
right. And the thing is, I've also had people that said, "Hey, I just want to come for free," and they've already helped me a few times. I'm like, "No, dude, you can get paid for this."
Right.
Like, because now they're worth it.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
they did one thing, and this gets into like even like the conscientious thing, like breaking in, and this goes along with assisting. And I know this isn't just about assisting, but breaking in. But if you can be conscientious, meaning show up on time,
Be more specific. On time means early.
well, sure.
Early means you're late. I mean, if you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, if it's 8:00,
Get there 10 till.
yeah, 10:15, right? And if you do something that's wrong, be honest about it.
Right.
Say, "Hey man, I dropped this thing. I had somebody that did that. I watched them drop my camera case out of the back of a car and they didn't tell me." That left, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's things
You
like
know
that.
right away that like they're not an honest person.
What else did they do?
Right. That you didn't see.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
can tell a lot.
I never brought it up. I just didn't call anymore.
Exactly.
That was it. Yeah. You have done here as a social media photographer.
Yeah, you know what? I've had this theory, and I've bounced off a lot of people, and they have most of them foo-foo it, but I still think it's a great idea.
Okay.
If I were to do this over again,
Yes.
and I were trying to break into photography, what I would do is I would approach business owners, and I would say, I would check out their social media presence. Okay, if they had any at all, usually they don't have enough photos, right? So I would make arrangements. I would say, okay, I'm going to come in once a month and I'm going to take 60 pictures. Okay, I'll probably be here for 3-4 hours. I'll take 60 pictures. We'll do some close-ups of the cup there, and then we'll do, the managers talking to this guy, and, we'll do a pretty picture of the sign out front, and I'll give you content. 60 images of content for X number of dollars. And I'll come back once a month and do that. And if they agree to it, if you give them a really good price,
Right.
then you have a once a month client, and that's gold.
Sure.
So, and I think there's a need for that, and if you give them really good photos, first of all, you get portfolio, you get to know those people, and you can build, I think you could be able to build a really nice clientele very quickly.
It's interesting you say that because, nowadays with marketing, we think, well, we make our Facebook pages and we get our likes and all of these things. And kind of what you just explained there was almost the old school of doing things, like when we would show up and show our book or whatever. But this way, you're making. I still think human contact is very important. First of all, that business owner gets to see your heart about things. I go there a lot, but I think that's incredibly important because people know when they're being sold, like you're selling them. A lot of people don't like that. But if you show that you have, by your actions, that you have an interest for them and what they do and how you, with what you bring to the table, can help them, and you're giving it at a good price where they don't feel like you're selling them, I think that's huge. And that's kind of what you're explaining.
Right. And if you were even ambitious enough, you could make yourself the social media person. You'll say, you give me your, your password and I'll post this once a day.
Sure.
And there's software that'll do that for you.
Sure. Nowadays, yeah. I mean, you can shoot little video vignettes and do all kinds of things.
Right. Take you 2 seconds, get a happy customer drinking one of their beers or whatever.
Or if it's a testimonial or whatever it is.
Right. You could produce so much content in 3 hours. We should take a second, I think, and explain how we used to get clients. And to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure how to find new clients like this. But the old days, okay, you would do your research, you'd see, X agency, and you knew that their clients were something because of their webpage or their reputation or whatever. And you would call up and you would say, you'd find the list of art directors and you would say, hey, my name is Michael Ray. I'm a photographer in town. Could I come in and show you my portfolio? Okay. Now you would go in, you would show them your work, and you would have a discussion. Hopefully you guys would kick it off, and they would, next job that came up that they thought you were appropriate for, they would call you.
Yep.
That has all gone away. I don't even know how to meet people there anymore. I guess just online, follow them on Facebook most of them don't do Facebook, but Instagram, whatever.
Right.
But, that's how things used to be. So just to put everything in context that we're talking about now.
Yeah, I think, you're definitely right about that. And, and that gets back to what you talked about earlier in the other video when you said, about, you have a concern for your reputation. And reputation means word of mouth, so I still think word of mouth is a very powerful thing as much as we put on social media. And I think social media is a very powerful tool that we need to engage in. I'm really bad at it, and I'll admit that. But I do see the importance of it. I just don't care for it, but that's a personal thing. But if you can play in that world and engage, but still have this human aspect of reaching out, and I think you can be very successful. And I think that's a very, very good point. Which gets into donating to good causes. And we've had some experience with this, and it's been for me, it's been fulfilling. I feel good about the work we do, but you're also getting your name out there. A lot of times when you, in the commercial side, a lot of the things you do does not have your name attached to it. The only way your name is attached to it is if you put it on your website. But whenever you give them the images, it generally doesn't say photos by Michael Ray.
Right.
But when you donate your services, your name generally shows up. Whether they thank you at an awards banquet, they put it in a magazine, and they feel like they need to give you some kind of photo credit, which when you're starting out, that's what you want. You want people to know your name. So donating to a good cause, you might not get the dollar, but you'll get the name recognition. And that, I think that's huge.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I found when I'm donating my services. I tend to be more artistic because
because you don't have anybody telling you what to do.
Right. I care a little bit less about, if I'm giving it for free, I get a little more say about what's going on.
Sure.
So I can go a little more artistic on it. And they're usually photos that I like better.
Right.
It's like, if you're doing a commercial job so many times that you've compromised on this, compromised, and it's like not quite the way you wanted it if you had all your way.
Right.
Well, this time you get it pretty much the way you want it.
Yeah, you're not constrained.
Right. I mean, they can make suggestions. You can do it, but they're begging, so they can't be choosing too much.
Right. And and a lot of times, when you walk into a situation that you're donating it, they don't really have anything anyways. So they don't really have an idea.
Right.
And they're relying on you to be the idea guy,
Right.
So yeah, I think donating to a good cause is you're donating to a good cause. That's a great thing, but you're generally getting your name out there because they will print it. They'll put it out.
I do some work for Flashes of Hope.
Yeah.
And I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, I meet some really cool people.
Yeah.
And, you get to see people that are truly suffering, and that makes you feel lucky as hell. And I make some powerful portraits and I give it to them. And the kids love getting their picture taken. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And it's like just a great, gratifying experience all around for everybody.
Sure.
I love it.
And that brings us into networking. That is a great way to network, by giving it away like that. And generally, when you give things away like that, if somebody is in a position of like if they know people, or when you give things away like that, people automatically want to say, well, how can I help this person?
Right.
And they'll introduce you to other people, or they'll invite you to their Christmas party, and you go there and there's a bunch of people there, that might be from agencies or might be from different areas in the art world that you're trying to break into, and they'll introduce you to them, and they'll say, hey, he did some great work on this piece that we did, and now these beautiful black and white images are hanging in a gallery or whatever, and it shows who you are as a person. It gets confirmation from this person that you do good work, and you didn't have to say a word.
Right.
And they've sold you.
Yeah. And they just like repaying you.
Yeah. I've experienced that. I really like that. I mean, even so, I'll say this too, like, even after you're established, still give it away.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good for you to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not all about the money. I mean, you want to make art, you want to make people happy.
Right.
You want to share.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love this profession. You get to do all of them.
It's really huge. And that brings us into like knowing who your possible clients are, talk about that.
Well, you never know. Well, there are basically three kind of clients. There's ad agency people,
Yep.
graphic design people, which is very similar to ad agency people. And the third type is just business, general business, the marketing department of pretty much any business. Right. And even if you don't have a marketing department, you have to market somehow. So all these people need photographs at one time or another. They might use stock, or they might take pictures themselves. Yeah. But, sooner or later, they're going to have a social media post that they need photos for, or they're going to have a brochure that they're putting together, or the website, or a billboard, or they all need photos. So if you can hunt those people down,
So how would you? Okay, so let's talk about that. Like, so early on, we had to do certain things to get established with an ad agency. But if somebody wants to try the corporate direct, contact, how would you do it?
How would I do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I had a targeted market, like let's say I wanted to work for Consol Energy, okay, I would probably go on their website, find out who the director of marketing is, or the VP of marketing, and I would probably make a call to their secretary, who would probably answer the phone, and I would, or maybe the email address is listed there of that person, and I would add them to my emailing list. And I have to admit, I haven't sent out any emails in a long time, and it's probably not a good thing, and I'm going to start doing it again. But send an email, introduce yourself, send them a postcard. Like, that's old technology, but it's unusual now. It's novel. It's
right.
probably more effective than it used to be.
And it's like looking at a Polaroid.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this is cool. You know what I mean?
It's different.
It gets through too.
It's tangible.
You know, it gets through, whereas that spam filter isn't going to pick up a postcard.
Right. Or if you're sending out a MailChimp thing of 500 emails, and it knows that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to do it. Same with art directors. You know, you can say, you know, say you want to shoot some pizza for that place down at the corner. You know, stop in and say, hey, you guys ever use photos for anything? Like, you know, and just start a conversation. You know, build a personal relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a slow way to do it, but
it's effective. And, you know, it's about being remembered. You know, if you can make somebody remember you, you know, I still think that in-person thing, even if you send them something tangible, that's not normal now. And they'll remember you.
Well, let me jump down to it's much further down on our list, but
do it.
The kit marketing, it's like
Right.
Kit to me just is KIT, keep in touch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A long time ago, I mean, I was probably in my 20s. I went to this seminar. It was a 3-day seminar in Chicago, and it was all about creativity. And this is back before the internet, because I remember, like, the guy asked, okay, who has a web page? And like me and like one other guy put up their hand out of 50 people. But anyways, his thing was, and it's so applicable today still.
Right.
His thing was, if you get slow, one way to get almost immediate work is to remember your clients. And let's say Alan.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about Alan. We have a client we share. Okay, now Alan he's into cars.
Yeah.
You know, he sold it recently, but he had this old, 75 Chevelle or something like that.
Right.
Okay, so for someone like that, what he would suggest is, like, you do a little research where you would find an article in a magazine about a certain car, or the car you think it might be interesting to him, or some subject that he might find interesting. And you clip it out, put it in an envelope, just write a little note, hey, I thought you might enjoy this, and send it to him. And it's just, you're keeping in touch. You know, it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
You know, that pops, you send a postcard out and it shows up on the guy's desk. And, the job comes in, he looks at the job order, and he's like, and he sees your postcard,
Sure.
and it's like, I'll give this,
Yeah.
And it's
Or
the way
they'll
to do
even
it.
call and say, hey, man, what are you up to?
Right.
Which turns into a lunch date or whatever.
Right.
Like, yeah, it happens. I mean, because the reality is you do become friends with your clients, or friendly enough where, they'll tell you about things in their life, and, it's more than just business. And so, yeah, I mean, even reaching out like that, it's not a, it's not a strange thing for the client. Like, why did he send me this? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. You know the guy, and it's like, and that's so easy to do with an email nowadays.
Sure.
I mean, you could just say, hey, man, I saw this, whatever, like,
yeah.
photo that we did 10 years ago show up, and whatever.
Yeah, it brings back memories. It was a fun time.
Yeah, and it's just out of sight, out of mind, and it's just fighting that.
Right. I mean, Alan's a good person to bring up, because, I mean, and gosh, and I was assisting then, but the MSA shoot he was a part of, and I have very, very good memories of that shoot. It was a wild shoot. We had to be on our toes. There were so many people involved, and I still love those memories of that. And so he'd get a kick out of seeing a Polaroid or something, because back then we were shooting Polaroids,
Right. Yeah, he's like, and that applies. I mean, if it's so hard to find new clients, it really is hard to find new clients.
Yeah.
It's much easier to hold on to old clients.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to, okay, this is kind of a tangent subject, but I think it's a really important one. Okay. There are basically two kinds of clients out there.
Yep.
I mean, you could divide them up in all
Sure.
kind of ways, but there are like big clients, like a big agency, and they will hire you for your specialty. Okay. And if you're not a specialist, you're probably less likely to work for them because, okay, they have Nestle, and they're not going to hire a journalist to do a Nestle job. You know what I mean? They're going to look for a food photographer. So there are those clients that'll hire you for that specific genre of shoot. Okay. So they'll hire you every once in a while. But then there's the other kind of client. They're a small agency and they'll hire you for pretty much every shoot they have.
Right.
Those are the preferred shoots in my mind. You might make a little less money per shoot, but you get a lot more shoots.
Yeah, the volume's higher.
Right.
Yeah, and I have those. I know exactly what you mean. You know, it's like, and the thing is, those agencies don't necessarily do specialized work. They do everything. You know, where you have some of the other ones where they're doing beer companies, and you know what I mean? And, and that's
the big time.
The big time. Yeah. And so I think if you can bridge the gap between working, I mean, if you have some specialty qualities about you, I mean, that's a serious bonus, you know, but if you can be a very good generalist, and that means going into lighting situations and being a problem solver, but also having a personality to mix with all these people, it will work.
Yeah. And if you're just starting out, I would suggest, unless you're really one of the elite 2%, you don't even bother going after those big agencies.
No.
Because when you're just getting into the field, you don't have a specialty.
No. And generally they find you.
Right.
There's a buzz going around.
Right.
This person does this. And then they'll reach out to you. If, you know, they'll research you and then find you.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to like just include them in your marketing in general,
that's cool.
That's cool because that way they kind of heard of you because of that. Yeah. But don't go hounding them. Don't try to
No.
Because they hire specialists and you're not a specialist. In your career, you start out as a generalist. If you're smart, I think you start out as a generalist. If you start out as a specialist, I think you do yourself a disservice just because you're not good enough to specialize.
Okay.
And I don't think it's good for you either because you don't get to develop all the skills you need in photography. You might be, good at lighting in a studio, but you have no experience lighting on location. I mean, there's different skill set there.
Absolutely. So I guess that would be a great segue into creating a portfolio and or web page, which are just online portfolios. I mean, really, I think the print portfolios are pretty gone.
I don't even have one.
Yeah. But no, I don't have. I mean, I have an old one that I'd like to look at, but there's nothing new. But so okay, let's talk about creating a web page for somebody who's breaking in. We just got done talking about not necessarily being a specialist. So in creating a web page so that people can find you, I would assume that the right thing to start with is being a generalist and letting them figure out what maybe your specialty is. You might shoot a certain way and not even realize it's a specialty. Yeah, you'll
evolve into what you are going to be.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you can't pick it even. I mean, you can direct yourself. Okay, I'm interested in that. And I call it R&D. Like if I want to I'll find something interesting and I'll say, and you'll say to yourself, like, if you go to a client and you're never going to get hired for something they don't see. Okay. Now, if you could show them 10 pictures of like this technique or this look, then all of a sudden in their mind, oh yeah, that's a consistent look. I understand what he's doing.
Right.
That looks good. It'll look good for my next job.
Sure.
That's perfect. But you have to come up with those first 10 pictures yourself.
Right.
Or just wait for clients to hire you for something that may never happen.
Right.
So,
and sometimes you get lucky that way.
Yeah, not very often though.
Right.
I mean, if you want to be a food guy, find yourself a stylist and shoot some food. Yeah. And even if you have to give it away or just do it,
So you're making me think of something, and I think this is really important. So when I started assisting you, I of course got around 4x5, 8x10, right? And I would go down on the weekends and shoot. And so I went and got an expensive watch, and I'll tell this story quickly. But
you're going to tell the Billy story. I can't believe you're going to tell the Billy story.
I am going to tell it. Well, I mean, I think it's important because that one line that was said to me was really important. I was spending hours setting it up. I was so proud of this, and lighting and moving the light, and Polaroid, shoot, bang, 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 And then Billy walks in. I'm under the dark cloth, and he had somebody with him. I don't.
You're going to leave that far out?
Yeah, I will. Okay. Yeah. But I lifted my head out from under the thing, and I was so satisfied with this, and I was ready to go to film. And I showed it to him, and he said, man, that's really nice. And I said, yeah. And he goes, you've been working on this a while. And I said, yeah. He goes, how long? And I said, man, about 4 hours. And he goes, nobody's going to pay you to do that.
Right.
That was huge. I mean, I knew right then that I needed to instinctively know lighting and how to get out of trouble. Like nobody was going to pay me to figure it out. That was such an eye opener.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, you have to do that 4 hour shoot.
You do. Well, I mean,
it's a learning curve.
I had to put the time in.
Right.
But that didn't just because I did that shoot, it didn't mean I had it figured out. What I figured out was nobody's going to pay me to do that because that's what he said. And he wasn't wrong.
No, but the thing is, if you would have stopped at 1 hour, which they may have paid you for that, for 1 hour, you would have a shit photo and you would never get any good photos. Like you would have never developed the skills to get that good photo.
Right.
So that 4 hours was a learning curve.
Right.
And that isn't your only 4 hour learning curve. I'm sure you've had many more. Absolutely. I know I've had.
Absolutely. But it awoke something in me that I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know. Like I was excited about this thing I made, and it took me 4 hours to make it. And I think he, God bless him. I think he wasn't trying to be mean. That wasn't a mean comment. He was trying to teach me something, because anybody that walks in thinks, well, I'll make this image. There is a time limit. Like you have to move forward. And if you've been on shoots where you're shooting and you can tell that the client's looking at their watch, getting restless, and now you have this game you play. Like, how far do I push it?
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I'm a big believer in like that R&D. Like you had to do that on the weekend.
I did.
And if you didn't do it on the weekend,
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't be in this business still.
That's right.
Like you would have never gotten good enough. If you would have only been willing to spend an hour doing it, and like, Billy said, I can only spend an hour doing this. That's all I'm going to do. It's like, you would be out of the business by now. I guarantee it.
Sure.
It's you have to put in more than you think you have to put in.
You do.
You're learning your craft as an artist.
Right.
Yeah, you can be artsy fartsy later, but you better know what makes that do what you want it to do to make your vision happen.
Yeah, and to even show them what your vision is.
Right.
And you can't fool people. Like, people know what junk is at times, especially if you're working with art directors. Like, they know, like they've been around, they see it, and they know when you're putting out subpar work, and that's a bad scene.
Yeah, and it's you have to have the reps to have the confidence, and that confidence gets you through so many things. I mean, it's like if I look at this photo, I can tell you what's wrong with it, and I can fix it.
Right.
I know exactly what I need to do that. Whereas if you didn't go through that learning curve of 100 times, like having that same problem before, then you would be panicked, or you would be faking it.
And that does come with reps. I mean, I have said this about myself. There was a day where the light bulb went off in my head, and it's not an ego comment, but I wasn't afraid to shoot anything. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that somebody could have shot it different or maybe better or what, but I knew that I was going to make anything work. There was times early in my career where I was literally figuring it out. And then it got to the point where you can walk in a room that's not lit and you're like, I need a light there. I need this here. I need you to stand here. And it all becomes instinctive. And it's like, you just know what it's going to do. Now, you might say, hey, I want to try a grid versus a box. And, you might modify things down. But like, I'll bet a lot of the shoots you go on when you're shooting environmental portrait, the light doesn't change too much once you set it up. Like, you know what I mean? You instinctively do these things and boom. And it's like 98% there or whatever.
Right.
And it's just a ratio thing or whatever.
Right. And that, that's a good thing. But you also have to be available for those happy accidents to happen. Those are the great things. Like you can get 90% of their way there and it'll be a nice photo and everybody will love it. But every once in a while you get lucky and there's like something that happens that you had no control over.
Sure.
You didn't think about it. And all of a sudden, holy shit, this is a great photo. And it's,
And you add that to your arsenal of technique.
yeah, sometimes. You know what? I have this theory. I call it the ladder of understanding.
Okay.
Okay. And here's the way it works is we are all on the ladder of development somewhere. Okay. I'm on this step. You're on this step, right? Say not you, but like,
Yeah, I get
let's say
Yeah.
I'm halfway up this ladder. Okay. Now I can look down at somebody on a lower rung of this ladder and I can see where he's missing it.
Yep.
Like those light bulbs haven't gone off yet. I can see that he just doesn't understand that. He just doesn't get it. But somewhere the next ladder over, there's somebody up higher than me. And I can't get what they're got. Like their stuff is so much better, but I don't know why.
Right.
I just don't know why they're better. If I did know why, I'd be better.
Sure.
And it's like one of those light bulbs have to go up in my head so I can take another step up.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I picture it.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think that's, I mean, that's, in a sense, that's assessing where you are, and maybe you're okay with where you're at, or maybe something new comes and excites you. And I've done that. Like I used to, I went through a time not long ago where I bought some backgrounds and I was shooting portraiture at like, I don't know, 40 millimeter. And I was shooting like, I don't know, F8, F9, F10,
Which is like the opposite of what we normally do.
Right. And I love those portraits. Everything was like razor sharp and it was slightly above and it was wider and I saw it down to their waist and, it was just like.
It was novel.
Yeah. And their faces jumped out a little more. And it was a technique that like, I was not known for that. And I kind of stumbled into it and had a great time with that. I did a bunch like that. And the clients ended up liking that too. And that was new for me. And I'd been doing it for a while, but I think it's important, to push yourself in those artistic directions, and that was that whole rut thing that we talked about yesterday too.
One of the things that I think a lot of people aren't willing to do is fail. And I think you got to fail.
I can be in that camp.
That's us in these podcasts. I don't know if this is going to catch on. I mean, it's kind of fun to try. If it works, people like it, then it'll succeed. If it doesn't, then it was an interesting experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, just stick yourself out there. And
give it a try.
Yeah. Okay. So really the last thing on here that I see, I feel like we went over everything, but it was starting a mailing list. I mean, is that still relevant today?
I think it is, just because of the keep in touch kind of thing. If you meet someone, say you meet someone at a party or whatever, he's influences your job in some way, like he works at an agency. It's nice to keep in touch. It's like, hey man, I enjoyed meeting you. It's like, and then 2 weeks later, and this is another part of it too. I mean, you want to keep in touch, but one of the reasons you might want to keep in touch is you just want to drop an image. Hey, this is something I did the other day. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
I just thought you might want to see it. Just something like that. And it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just old school. Maybe it is irrelevant now. I'm not sure, but I don't think it is.
Well, everything old comes around again.
Yeah.
It's like bell bottoms. they get popular.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if they're popular now, but I know they've made their way in and out. I think we've been talking 44 minutes. I think we covered good ground.
Yeah, I hope people find this interesting. I mean, it's like if I was just starting in business and if I could sit like a fly on a wall and listen to two established photographers talk, I mean, that would be a value to me, but maybe no one else agrees. I don't know.
No, I think it's a help. I'm happy about what we talked about.
I'm happy. The only thing I sort of regret is I wish you'd have told the real story about that Billy meeting.
All right. I mean, I'll just say this. Billy photographed ladies.
Strippers.
Okay,
He
you said it.
he specialized in photographing strippers, which
Sure.
you would think that's a really sleazy thing, but Billy wasn't a sleazy
No, he
person.
was
He was
not.
just like old, like he grew up on the north side, which is like really like urban.
Yep.
Like he was just a crazy guy, and I loved him to death. He would do anything for you.
And towards the end, he became a teddy bear.
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
did.
know. I didn't know
Oh
him
my
as the
God.
razor bear.
Oh my God,
With sharp teeth.
he was. I could tell you a story.
You
Many
can if
stories.
you want.
Okay, then you can finish your story.
Sure.
But okay, so Billy was the kind of guy. He was like a few years older than we were, and like if you want to know anything about commercial photography, you can just leave right now because this is just bullshit. But okay, Billy was this guy, and he used to. I think it was Antigua or some island where he was working for NASA, and he basically just he monitors satellites as they flew over, something like that. But he's on this island, and there was nobody else on this island, and he's making this good money, and he had all this money, and he was into photography. So at the end of that career, he just bought all this equipment and went to the Art Institute. Well, he was older than I was, and he was in my class, and like everybody wanted to be Billy's on his team because he had all the best equipment. Yep. I mean, he had multiple motor drives and all kind of long lenses and stuff. But the downside to Billy was he was violent. I mean, this guy, he was like, if you looked at him funny, he'd punch you. Like he was just this crazy guy from the north side that you didn't like, you wanted to stay away from.
Right.
Okay. And then one day Billy comes in and he was crying. And it's like, that's so unlike Billy.
Yeah, what happened?
You know, like, oh my God, Billy, what happened? He goes, well, I'm coming to work and this guy in front of me, this asshole, he slammed on the brakes and I almost hit him and I got out of the car and I was beating on his window and he rolled it down and he maced me. and that's why he was crying because he just came in, he had been maced.
Yeah.
But he turned into a teddy bear.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I remember you telling me a story of him reaching over the counter at, I don't know, not Bernie's, but it was a photo place.
Yeah, it was on Smithfield Street. I can't remember the name of the place, but he ended up being partners with that guy.
Because the guy's scared to death of him.
I don't
Billy
know,
probably said, "Let me be your partner."
He literally got mad at the guy at the counter, reached over, pulled him across the counter, like a glass counter, like
Right.
like that's the kind of volatility he was known for.
Not towards the end, though.
No, he was hey, tell your story. Tell the rest of it.
Well, I mean, there's not much else to tell. I mean, when I lifted my head out from under the 4x5
while shooting your watch.
Yes, while shooting the watch, I was greeted by two ladies who was actively doing what they do for a living.
Yeah, didn't they come in like with a police uniform or something?
No,
or is that a different story?
That might have been definitely. Billy used to shoot on the weekends at Mike's studio like I did, and he wasn't there every weekend. But that particular weekend, he came in, and he knew me. He knew that I would blush. I was a very young 20-year-old in my 20s, and he had his arm around both of them, standing right next to me, so that I would see all that whenever I came out, and it was just Billy's way. Yeah. He wanted to embarrass me, and he did.
I don't know how to explain Billy to people because, you know, you think, oh, he shoots strippers. He was like dregs of the earth. He was just like, I don't know. I just can't explain it, but he was a great guy.
He was, and he just wanted to hang out towards the end. Like, he just wanted to hang out. Like, he would come over, and we'd get Pittsburgh pierogies, and he loved that. And sometimes he'd bring them to us, and he would just hang out.
Yeah, he was really overweight, and he would sit on my couch, and it would take him like 5 rocks to get out of it. He'd be, whoa, whoa, whoa. But, I mean, I miss him. I miss him to death.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, I don't know if we're going to put all this in, but I'm just going to say, like, towards the end, you know, he was sick, and he had kidney problems, and he was falling apart. And, you know, I do remember a few times sitting with him, you know, through his dialysis, and, you know, those were some of my favorite memories. You know, he was very vulnerable, but I always tried not to make him feel that way. And we had some really good talks, and just to be there with that guy, you know, like I admired him, and he was a friend, and I was glad to be able to have that time with him. And, you know, we always said the day that the phone doesn't ring is the day that there's a problem, and that day came, and there was a problem. And
I miss him. I miss him every day.
yeah, he's a good guy. So, wow, that was depressing. Yeah. No, it's not depressing. We love you, Bill, and that's it. All right. Anything else, my friend? All right. Well, this was good. This was
hopefully people got something out of this.
Yeah, how to break into commercial photography. So, break on in. All right. We are out.